anytime Daniel Jeremiah posts a mock draft, I am very excited to dive into it.
I was just on Twitter, scrolling through. I'm always on Twitter, really. They're talking NFL or looking for NFL-related topics. And I see Daniel Jeremiah's tweet about his mock draft 1.0.
We're going to be looking at Daniel Jeremiah's mock draft 1.0.
Today we are taking a look at Daniel Jeremiah's, I believe actually first mock draft of the offseason.
Let's go ahead and get into it. Daniel Jeremiah and his first mock draft of the year.
What's going on, Jeromes? It's the most wonderful time of the year. Daniel Jeremiah's mock draft 1.0.
All right, guys, what's going on? Welcome in. So in this one, we're going to be breaking down Daniel Jeremiah's first mock draft of the offseason.
Oh, we're talking mock draft again. This one comes from NFL Network's Daniel Jeremiah.
We're reacting to Daniel Jeremiah's first mock draft of the 2022 NFL draft cycle. I'm sure many of you are familiar with Daniel Jeremiah's work, former scout, host of the Move the Sticks podcast. I'm a big fan of his, certainly being a former scout working with the Baltimore Ravens in their front office. He has a lot to offer, and we wanted to get into his mock draft, give our thoughts, give our reactions, see what kind of surprised us, what we agree with, what we disagree with. So without further ado, Drew, let's jump right into it.
Curveball here at number 3 has the Texans taking Kyle Hamilton. Now, he's a really good player, maybe the best player in the draft, but the thing is, he's a safety, and it seems like value on that is, or at least the position is undervalued in comparison to some of the top pass rushers and tackles. So it's interesting to me that he has Kyle Hamilton going over Kayvon Thibodeau, but I'm sure that leaves the Jets in a perfect position.
Texans, Kyle Hamilton. I've mocked this a few times. I think in this scenario, maybe the Texans would go Kayvon Thibodeau. It depends on who they would hire as a coach. And that will factor in who's their defense coordinator. Do we stay with Lovie Smith? Is it a different scheme? I think they would consider Kayvon Thibodeau because they need pass rush help. They got a couple young guys that stepped up, but they need pass rush help. But they also need safety help. It kind of felt like Justin Reed would be on his way out. In their current scheme, they'll value safeties, getting better safeties. A little bit of a split safety look. Got to really help over the top of the corners, get the deep halves a lot of the time. So Hamilton is a rare safety prospect. So that pick makes sense to me. I think worthy of the pick.
Texans going Kyle Hamilton. So, again, I think KT is the guy to take at the spot, even though Kyle Hamilton is my number 3 player in the draft. Funnily enough, this is exactly in my big board order. But I just don't think Kyle Hamilton, even as a DB god, brings the same value as KT. Now, I think there's a jump off past KT, but again, Kyle Hamilton, not too shabby at all. Again, if you get him, you're getting a one-of-a-kind style player, and you guys could use a safety for sure, and the class is extremely thin for safety. It is. It just got way worse. 3 of the first-round quality safeties decided to return, so yeah, Kyle Hamilton at number 3 is not a heinous pick, just not one that I would do myself.
Number 3, he has the Texans taking Kyle Hamilton. I could see a few arguments for this one. I think definitely where Evan Neal is off the board, I can definitely see why they would take Kyle Hamilton. The Texans also need some edge help. They haven't really had a great pass rusher since losing J.J. Watt. So, and I mean, really, with a guy like Kayvon Thibodeau still on the board, it's hard to say whether it'd be better to take him or Kyle Hamilton, because they're both incredible prospects. You don't see safety prospects like this come out very often at all. Like, I don't remember the last time there was a safety prospect that was this promising. So I could see the argument. So I like the pick.
Oh, Kyle Hamilton off the board to the Houston Texans at number 3 overall. This is a little bit of a surpriser. Hamilton feels like a Patriot pick for the New England South. He's big, fast, he's versatile, and he's smart. Coming in here to the Houston Texans. I almost said New England. He almost had me for a second there, Daniel. But the Houston Texans going after, I guess you could say, the best player available. Maybe he's better than Kayvon Thibodeau. You could make that argument. They need some help in that secondary too with Justin Reed maybe on the way out. Maybe he wants a new a contract somewhere else, a new scenery is definitely possible. Kyle Hamilton would be able to slide anywhere on that defense. You name it, they can use it.
3 Texans. Now, if they go Gerard Mayo, if they go Brian Flores as head coach, I think they certainly could go defense and Kyle Hamilton over a Thibodeau. Woo, get it done, man. But Kyle Hamilton, I think, will be that joker. I think that having that sheriff on the back end would make a lot of sense as the Houston Texans look to rebuild at every single level. Hamilton is going to be an absolute stud going forward.
Houston Texans. Safety Kyle Hamilton from Notre Dame. Okay, now this one caught me a little bit off guard because, you know, we're going through the offseason here. Granted, it's mid-January. We all know how good of a prospect Hamilton is, what he's done at Notre Dame, how he projects to the next level. I mean, man, he just does so many different things. His versatility, positional versatility. You can line him up at nickel corner if you need him to. Free safety. He's a true ball hawk. He could come down and support in the running game. He just does so many good things. He's an explosive athlete, high defensive IQ. To me, this pick just kind of feels like Kyle Hamilton is a really, really good player. He's going to be a really, really good pro. Houston needs really good players. It's not so much huge position of need because, you know, Reed at safety is going to hit the open market, and there's going to be a lot of safeties on the open market. Tracy Walker from the Detroit Lions, Marcus May, New York Jets, Jesse Bates, one of my favorite players from the Cincinnati Bengals, Marcus Williams Saints. There's going to be a lot of safeties. So I'm looking at this draft pick. I think mid-January, it's... I understand it right now from that perspective. Like, okay, Houston just needs good players. Who's a good player? It's Kyle Hamilton. But I don't know. For me, I think if I'm Houston, you know, a lot of one-year deals on that team, a lot of guys set to the open market. I think I would try to bring back Reed for, you know, 1 to 2 more seasons, or, you know, take some of that money and go bring in another safety. And now this 3rd overall pick opens up to where you can go draft Thibodeau here, and hopefully he could be there for the next 8 to 10 seasons. So Kyle Hamilton, I love him. I absolutely love him as a prospect, but I don't necessarily know how he like to fit in Houston.
Texans, this one I didn't see coming. He has the Texans taking Kyle Hamilton, which I guess could make sense. You get an elite captain on the opposite side of the field. On the defensive side, they are possibly losing Reed to free agency. Maybe they go that route. This is definitely the first mock draft that I've seen pop Hamilton into the top 3.
With the 3rd overall pick, Daniel Jeremiah has the Houston Texans selecting Kyle Hamilton. So yes, absolutely. Surprise. This is the first I am seeing of the safety out of Notre Dame, the all-world, very talented safety out of Notre Dame, landing in Houston, going as high as the 3rd overall pick. As much as I like the player, I have reservations about this particular selection.
Yeah, I mean, it's the position that's the furthest away from the football, and you want to, you know, in a team that's not that talented, one of the worst in the league, if not the worst roster in the league, you want to be able to draft players that are going to be closer to the football and then kind of work your way out. I think here, though, you're talking about he has the potential to be the most talented player in the draft, just in terms of what he can do. Yeah. And again, this is a player, if you're going to draft him high, as I would say at the very least in the top 10, or in my opinion, if you're going to draft him, period, it has to be in a defense where you move pieces around and things don't stay the same after the snap. It can't be, you know, we're just going to drop back in this cover 3, cover 2, and we're going to say, no, you got to have the Legos. We got to be moving the pieces around. I don't like the pick for the Texans. I understand it from a perspective of, hey, this is the best player. He's the best player in the draft, arguably. Sure. And we just want to continue to add talent. And obviously the Texans, they're not going to turn this thing around in 1 year. But I don't think drafting a safety is going to turn this thing around any faster. I think drafting, you know, either in the trenches or a quarterback would probably bear fruit quicker. I should say.
Quicker.
Yeah.
Generally, teams, what they want to do when they enter the draft is, as opposed to drafting for need, draft the best player available, right? And again, we're talking about Kyle Hamilton being perhaps one of the top 3 players in the entire draft. He's going to be the top player in the draft on some teams' boards, right? So from that perspective, I certainly understand it, but I'm with you. Typically, you want to build it inside out, to your point, right? When you mentioned closer to the line of scrimmage, the games are won and lost in the trenches. You mentioned that, you know, you do a single high or a 2 deep or whatever the case would be. That's not how you want to use Kyle Hamilton exclusively. He has to be the moving chess piece, and perhaps that's what the Texans have in mind here. There's been a few occasions over the years where defenses were built around a particular player. One of the guys that comes to mind immediately is Brian Dawkins. I thought the Philadelphia Eagles built their defense for a stretch of several years around Brian Dawkins. But you got to have some other horses in place as well in order to actually make that work. So an interesting selection here. Certainly understand it from a talent standpoint, but as far as the Texans, really building this thing and being able to turn the page as quickly as possible, probably not the direction that we would go in.
Let me ask you, if he is of the caliber of this player I'm going to say in a second, would you take him? If you know that's what you're getting, and I'm going to say it, I know you're going to be cringing. If that's Ed Reed you're drafting, are you drafting Ed Reed or are you going elsewhere with the Texans?
You can't do stuff like that, man. You can't ask me questions like that.
Let me just go to the very top.
I'm a Canes fan. That's my favorite safety of all time.
Right.
That's a tough one for me. We're talking about 20 years ago. And I don't want to downplay the importance and significance of, quality play, upper echelon play from the safety position. But those Ravens teams already had certain pillars already in place. Of course, you had Ray Lewis. You had Dallas Thomas. You had Jamie Sharper, Bull Ware. You had a number of stars already on that team. If I'm an organization, I might be middle of the pack, and I think I'm a safety away from people who are on elite defense. Then I might get aggressive and try to move up to acquire a Kyle Hamilton because I think he's that good. But for the Texans specifically, I don't think this is an apples to apples comparison between the Ravens of 2000, 2001 and the Texans of 2022. Two teams are very different. Ed Reed was a later first round pick. I believe he was 24th overall the year he was selected. So, again, I don't want to depress the value of the position. Of course, the NFL does tend to do that, but those teams are very different. I think those teams, in terms of where they are as the foundation of the organization, very different places.